Damon, why can't I slow down? Why can't I slow down? I just keep moving. I keep going. I don't feel good when I stop. Why can't I slow down? And I've been a business coach for several years now, coach hundreds of folks. And so we talk a lot about that because a lot of people that I coach are ambitious. I'm ambitious as well. And ambition can be a double-edged sword because on one hand, it allows you to do these big, often grandiose things that are beyond what other people have done, which is fantastic. The challenging part of that is if you don't know where that ambition is coming from or why you're driven that much, then it can get murky because what if you're not able to achieve? What if your body, your mind, your soul actually needs a break? Do you feel like you deserve a break? Right? Keep on quoting commercials. You deserve a break today. But do you feel like you deserve a break? And so it becomes really becomes more psychological, not like, oh, I'm a person who doesn't need to rest. Everyone needs to rest. Let's cut that out. No. Nope. As I was talking to someone else earlier this week, that hustle culture is out the window. We're over that. And if anything lasts 4 to 5 years, we're realizing that hustle culture is just going to drive us to the ground. So even again, as an ambitious person with me, I own like 3 businesses. I'm still like, like I took a nap earlier today. I'm not even going to lie because I was exhausted. So I had a bunch of work I need to get done. Got my kids to school, did my work, had a little bit of breakfast, and then I did my work. And literally as soon as I got my work out the door, I laid down for 45 minutes. I couldn't do it. I was like, I gotta stop. And I felt like the energy I have now, I would not have had. So there's usually 2 reasons why we feel away and believe that we can't slow down. The first way is having guilt or feeling guilty about slowing down. This can come from a couple different places. It can come from our childhood, our friend group, the people that are around us, our environment that says you actually can't slow down. You should always be busy because this bill is always going to be due. Because this accident could happen. Because we're a family or we're a peer group or whatever that always stays busy. So it could be from that aspect. It could come from the aspect of you actually doing well, which is ironic, right? Why would you feel guilty about resting when you're actually doing well? You have, the amount of money you need in savings or your business is doing great. Well, that's again back to the environment where maybe there's a level of survivor's guilt, which I talked about there's a live episode about Kendrick Lamar and his journey with his music. It's from a couple episodes ago. I want to say it's episode 375. In the replay, I'll go and put that in notes. So if you're watching in the replay, I'll throw it in the notes right below my big head. My whole point is that with his dramatic success and perhaps with your dramatic success, again, ambitious people, you're realizing that not everyone made it. And so there's a weight with that. It doesn't always feel good. I can identify with that. There's certain things that I was able to do that my peer group, my friends, even some of my family were not able to do. And with that success comes a level of guilt. And you're like, okay, well, I'm the one that made it. So there's no way I should go and take a nap today. Well, if you don't take that break, it doesn't have to be a nap, but it doesn't have to be a supersized thing. But if you don't take that break, then you're actually not going to be able to show up for the people that you might feel guilty leaving behind or being in their situations. So it gets really complicated. But the first big reason that you might not feel like you can slow down is by guilt. And that's usually based, I found in my research and in my work as a coach, based on our environment. The tricky part is that environment could be right now, like your peer group, people you're around. That environment could have been when you were a kid. A whole nother layer of it, that environment might have been based on what your parents or your guardians went through. My parents hustled a lot to get to where they are today and to have a good environment for me as much as they could. So if I'm slowing down, but I get my ethics or my values, or I just get certain lessons from my parents, they might not have been in a position to slow down. So us slowing down, at least to the extent of me being able to take a nap today, sometimes can be viewed as a sense of privilege. And in some ways it is. But it doesn't mean you don't slow down at all. And guilt isn't going to automatically make them get their rest and absolve your family or your environment for whatever they're going through. And frankly, that's not going to help you at all, because you won't be able to support anybody, not everybody, but anybody, if you're over there not doing your thing and not getting the rest that you need. The second, more insidious way of why we sometimes feel like we can't slow down is that we're actually trying to outrun something. And I don't mean like, I don't mean like Sha'Carri Richardson, I think I've got her name right, or Usain Bolt. Shout out to both of them. They're both beautiful and amazing. But you're not being a distance runner. You're being a runner in a more abstract, psychological or emotional way. There might have been something traumatic that happened. It might have been something challenging that happened. It might have been a heartbreak or something that you're like, I'm not gonna deal with that. Again, a couple episodes ago, we talked about your shadow and dealing with it. And I have a longer episode that talks about it that came out a few Sundays ago. Again, I'll throw that in the links below. But if we're not dealing with our shadow, if we're not dealing with the stuff that have usually feelings, big feelings, and we don't want to deal with it, one of the best or easiest exits, the most common exits, I should say, to not deal with it is to overwork ourselves, because then it forces us to put our focus on something else. I think it was Carl Jung, it might have been someone else of that era, said that if we don't want to deal with things, then we're going to focus on something else. And if there's nothing else to focus on, we're going to create that thing to focus on. So when we talk about there being drama, or I have to deal with this, or I have to deal with that, sometimes those things are based on our own creation. Again, it gets really deep psychologically really quickly. And that's why I wanted to have this episode, because I wanted to give as many tools, have this conversation, jump into the chat if you have any questions or comments or thoughts about some of the things I'm talking about. That's one of the reasons why I want to give these tools, is that when I work with people, or even people in my circle who say they can't stop or they can't rest, usually it's not a physical condition. Usually it's a mental or an emotional one. And again, it can get really deep really quickly. The best way to deal with it is actually figure out why you feel like you can't stop. Because as I talked about in my newsletter today, again at joindamon.me, you have the opportunity to stop a lot of times. Whether it's if you have a lot of places nearby like I do, walking to the grocery store instead of, if you're getting light groceries, walk to the grocery store instead of taking your car. If you're physically able to do it, if it's comfortable, if it's not 100 degrees outside as it is here, and you're getting some light stuff, then you can't take the extra 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't mean you need to exercise. It means that that's a form of rest that gives you time. And time, as they say, heals most, if not all, wounds. And so when we're talking about not feeling good resting, we're also talking about you not feeling in a place where you can take care of yourself. And literally all of us need to rest. Even the most testosterone up hype person, which I know quite a few folks, shout out to y'all. You need to sit down sometimes. And as I say, if you don't sit down, then life often will find a way to help you sit down. And that's as real as the talk gets. So just to make sure that that's clear, it could be if you don't feel good or feel like that you can't stop. It could be guilt over stopping because you don't feel like you deserve it, or it's not a safe enough environment to do so, which could be from your background or your current environment. Or you could be running away from something where if you slow down, this thing's going to pop into your mind. And either way, it's a pace that cannot be kept going the entire time. Great book on this topic is Do Nothing by Celeste Headlee. I want to make sure I get her name right. I had might have connected with her at TED. I think I saw her speak at TED. We've never met in person, but I loved her work. And she was actually talking about a previous work before this book came out. This book came out, I looked it up because I was familiar with the book. I checked out again. I mentioned her on other shows. This book came out March 2020. I was like, wow. Prophetic Celeste, because that was a period of time for you guys that are just tuning in, that was a period of time where most, if not all, the world, all of the first world, you want to call it that, was sheltering in place. That's when everything kind of shut down here in Las Vegas, and for a lot of the country, it was St. Patrick's Day. I remember it was that Monday. So it was definitely that Monday. It might have been St. Patrick's Day the day before, but it was March 17th, basically. It was a great opportunity for us to talk about why we should slow down. And that's what the book is about, the positive aspects of doing nothing. Now, she goes a little bit deeper than what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here, what we're talking about is calming down. So it's like, calming down. So let me go and find a moment to breathe. How do I get into that space? Doesn't have to be official meditation or anything that fancy, but it's like, no, I'm going to find this little nook and cranny to go ahead and just sit here for a moment, or to experience this for a moment. I talked about at the top of the show, me sitting with my kid, looking at the clouds. Like, kids are, if you have kids in your life, they're a great catalyst for, believe it or not, doing nothing. They might say that they're bored a lot, but then they also, if you catch them at the right moment, they are not doing anything, particularly teenagers, I would imagine. My kids aren't teenagers yet, but I remember myself as a teenager, and just staring, or just looking into space, or just being themselves. Celeste takes this a little bit deeper and says, not only is it just taking those moments that we're talking about in the show today, but also literally doing nothing. Like, no reading, no podcast on, maybe some music. I'm a big music guy. You can see actually there's Miles Davis and John Coltrane behind me. Maybe some music, but just literally just doing nothing. Kind of like when you first start going out with someone and you're just happy and you guys get along, it's a good date. You're just happy to be together. Having that, but for yourself. I was talking to a good friend of mine a while ago, and I was like, you know what? The last time I really just zoned out and just was comfortable just doing nothing all day, like really nothing, I was thinking back to like my college dorm, or maybe a little bit after that when I was post-grad. Now, there's reasons for that, because again, a lot of us are adulting. A lot of us have little kids that we have to take care of, or a spouse that we're working with, whatever. A job to do, we have to pay the bills. But that doesn't mean that we can't take like a Saturday or an afternoon or something and not plan anything and not do anything. The to-do list is not going to go away. I've talked about this in some of my TED Talks. The to-do list is infinite. Remember the show that came on a few years ago? I think it was Nora and the Infinite Playlist. Same thing. Just like you put on Spotify or whatever your preferred music network thing is, your music platform, and you play it on shuffle, and it'll literally go on forever for the billions of songs in there. That's what our to-do list is. This is a great rallying cry against that. The to-do list is a thing. I'm looking for my index cards, because I always got index cards everywhere. Let me see if I have my example index cards. I must be using an index card right now, but it could be a piece of paper that I'll use, and it'll have a long list of to-dos for that particular day. But I also know that to-do list has to end. Like, I have to stop it. She gets into that. Fascinating book. Again, as you can do the math, it's a few years old, but it's definitely worth your time. Another book is 50 Ways to More Calm, Less Stress. I can never say the book title. I love the book title, but I can never say it. Shout out to Maggie Cardis. Hope you're doing fantastic. We met a long time ago, and I've been involved with different journalism and media organizations. So I'm so glad to see you doing well. She has a fantastic book that just came out, I want to say last fall, maybe right before the holidays here in the States. The title just says it all. It's a really simple way to say, I can do this one thing today to calm the heck down. We need that, because even though kind of a counterpoint to Celeste's book, when Celeste's book came out, that's, if you remember, a few years ago, we were doing I wasn't, but in general, I have little kids, but it was different story for me. But for the general vibe, the general culture was doing the sourdough starters so you can make your own bread. It was, I crochet, and there were so many people, and I started crocheting like a long time ago, around the time I started meditating. And there were folks that were asking me, how do you crochet? And do you know about knitting? Which I don't, but they were asking me about that. Just that whole vibe. It was just different. And Now, many years later, I can feel the gears shifting again. And suddenly we want to be busy again. Suddenly we want to hustle again. Suddenly, going back to what I was talking about with the question as far as being afraid to slow down or not being able to slow down, which is how we often phrase it, even though that's not quite true, but not being able to slow down, that often can come also from a place of fear. If I slowed down before and I lost this opportunity, I slowed down before and the world slowed down. And if that happens again, I need to keep going. I need to keep going before it happens again. That puts us into a place of burnout. The 50 tips and suggestions, just short chapters in here, will help you chill. So this is kind of the foundation as far as us talking on the show today. This will actually allow you to execute. So you could be like, yeah, Damon, I want to rest. But what is that? What do you mean rest? What am I supposed to do? I don't know. I've never rested before, which we have, but I have some people that talk to me, that's when they come to me, they're like, I've never rested before, never taken a vacation. I'm like, well, you probably have, you just didn't recognize it was rest, or you put in some other category and your version of rest is something else. There's a great way to break that mindset a little bit and have a more productive mindset. Productive as in, you can actually, these are 50 action steps you can take depending on your situation to actually stay calm and rest today. So shout out to Maggie. She's been all over the country promoting the book. It's good to see you outside. If you have any questions or if you have any feedback, like, do you feel like you can't take a rest? Do you have particular reasons for it? There might be reasons that I'm totally ignorant to. Feel free to throw them in the chat, or feel like you're struggling trying to find ways to sit down. Say something in the chat, and let us know how we can support.